The curse of every ancient civilization was that its men, in the end, became unable to fight. Materialism, luxury, safety, even sometimes an almost modern sentimentality, weakened the fiber of each civilized race in turn. Each became, in the end, a nation of pacifists. And then each was trodden underfoot by some ruder people that had kept that viral fighting power, the lack of which makes all other virtues useless and sometimes even harmful. And that is a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. And it's something I've wanted to share because, as a lot of you know, the snowstorms, the winter weather has hit the Midwest and some southern states pretty hardcore. And a lot of people are suffering without power, and things are just happening. They don't know what to do. And during this time, I went out and did some cold weather camping here and there, and I've been outside a lot, walking through the woods, and a couple of my family members were quite worried about me, and they said, "Why do you do this? Why put yourself in danger? What value? You have a family. You could die. You have things you have to worry about." And that's some of the things that I wanted to talk about in this. And instead of just you guys looking at me, I'm just going to show random footage from things that I've kind of saved up. But yeah, why do this? Why continue to do this, especially at my age, 43? I'll be 44 later this year. And, when I can just hang it up and go live a, normal life and just subject myself to the powers that be, if you will. Well, that quote is one of the reasons why that I read off to you, that quote by Teddy Roosevelt. And it's something that I don't want to become, those things that, materialism, luxury, not that those aren't bad things to have. Okay, I don't want anyone to think that. But for me, it's a constant challenge of myself, especially in this day and age with, society being the way it is. And you never know what's going to happen. And some people are just never going to understand. They're just never going to understand why we do these things, why we continue to go out and, I guess you could say, face danger, adversity, and almost enjoy it. And there's not really one real reason why. It's kind of a sum of reasons, and it's really different for a lot of people. Some are similar. Some of the guys I know have similar reasons why, and we all share just kind of something, but then there are some where, well, maybe that's not why I am, but that's why you are. Some people believe that there's a world war coming. Some people believe in some kind of EMP, doomsday preppers, all these things. There's all reasons why. And, with preparedness, survival, outdoors. And for me, it's one, a love for the outdoors. Two, being self-reliant. Being able to, in those times when it gets really bad, knowing how to protect my family and the people close to me, the people that I love, that's really another reason why. And yes, I enjoy it. Maybe not in the moment. For instance, at the SEER Challenge, there were times where I was thinking, my goodness, I could be at home and I subjected myself to this. It's kind of the thing where after you do it, you're proud of it and you realize, man, that was awesome. That's kind of the fruit of it when you're doing it. When it's really the after, and you sit back and you look at everything you did and you see what you can learn from, but you go, man, I did that and that was great. But that's one of the reasons. The other is because sometimes it's just peaceful. I don't always go out into the like face adversity, if you will. Sometimes I'll just go out and camp and just enjoy myself and have some luxuries while I'm camping. It's not always all about survival. I enjoy the cold weather. I always have. I actually prefer it over the hot weather. Um, so that's why you see a lot of videos in the past where cold weather camping, but of course you got to get out there in the hot weather, and it's quite diverse. There's some military style training, some that's not, some that's just going and into the mountains, and so it's quite a wide range because I'd rather also just be well rounded. But yes, I do believe that it's possible that something could happen here in the United States, and it's happening everywhere in the world. We're not perfect. We are subject to possibly one day fall. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you know, I want to be ready, and I want my family to be protected. I want my friends to be protected. It's great to build a network of guys, to also rely on. You can only be self-reliant so long before you recognize that, what, I think I need some help. I think I need some assistance, and I need to pull knowledge from other people. And that's why you build a network and a community of just good dudes. And again, some people just aren't going to understand it, and you have to just, you could explain it all day long, but a lot of those people have just gotten too comfortable. We as a society, we have gotten too comfortable with making sure that, well, as long as the bills are paid, my power is going to stay on. The water is going to keep flowing out of my sink. And a lot of these winter storms that have happened have proven, well, that's not entirely true now, is it? Your pipes can freeze. The power can go out. And what are you going to do in those situations? You're just going to sit there and go, well, and make, and call on your cell phone and when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? Are you going to bust out your generator or your power station, or maybe turn your vehicle into its own generator? A lot of people don't know that, but your vehicle can act as a generator and just power things like your furnace if you get a converter. And I learned that through lessons. A couple years back, my basement completely flooded and I was not prepared. And I had to fix that. And now I've taken preventative measures, and I'm still taking preventative measures to make sure it doesn't happen again. Should the power go out or should the floodplain rise, what am I going to do to protect my house? And that's also from learning from other people, not just myself. YouTube is a great tool to go learn those things, but getting good hands-on training. What's going to happen when if an EMP hits? I know they talk about that all the time. Well, I don't know. Gonna have to go back to gotta learn how to use a map and a compass, I suppose. Assuming the magnet and the compass works. I don't exactly know how an EMP works. They say electromagnetic, so it could affect a compass. I don't know, but I can still read a map. And there are a lot of maps around. Even after that, you'll still have printed maps that are around that can help you. But it all has to do with, maintaining that fighting spirit. Also, I don't want to lose that. I don't want to get too comfortable. In fact, I actually have a hard time staying still for too long before I get antsy and want to, figure out, okay, what else do I need to do? What else can I do? For instance, this year I'm switching different kinds of training, doing some tracking courses, learning how to do that. Something I've never done before that I want to do. And I think that's important. I think it's important to not get sucked into one thing and continue doing that. Broaden your horizons. Don't be afraid to move in to uncomfortable spaces of things you've never done before. When I did the SEER challenge, I had never done that before. I had never been interrogated. I've learned how to land nav, and but doing that whole thing was the first time for me, and learned a lot of things. And I can't wait to learn things this year. And also, don't be afraid to fail. You know, um, certain things that I've failed at, and just took those as learning opportunities. Okay, what did I learn from my failure, and what preventative measures can I take to make sure that doesn't happen again, and how can I succeed afterwards? Got to try it again. You know, yeah, first time go is cool, but you know, it doesn't mean that the people who took two or three times aren't just as good. You know, always got to consider that. And sometimes the people who've actually done it, had to learn, who failed and had to do it again. You might find in some cases, not all, in some, that you could actually learn more from them because they know what it's like to kind of fail, get back up and go. Whereas the first time go people, you know, they haven't failed yet, and sometimes there's a sense of arrogance there, until they get humbled. So stay humble. That's the other thing, as best as you can. It's really easy to get arrogant. I know I have at times, and do your best to stay humble. And but yeah, that's all part of that fighting spirit. You see in the comments of myself and my channel and a couple other guys, Jason, Modern Minuteman, Grunt Proof, Brent Stoker, all these guys, Jake, Trent, Paul. I could go on and on, but you see the comments of these people who most likely aren't even doing anything except typing, going, "Why do you do this? Why? What's this for?" I think we actually just saw one on Modern Frontiersman, where, "Are you nuts? Why would you patrol your own property?" And and most of these people, they don't even do anything. They're just sitting there going, "What? Why are you doing this?" When it comes to patrolling your own property, my reason would be because it's my property and I can do what I want. In that sense, I don't, and especially when it comes to my own property, I don't even have to give you a reason why. The reason is because it's my property and I'll do what I want on it, and that's enough. And what concern is it of yours what I'm doing on my property, so long as I'm not doing it on yours? Um, that's just people. It could be born out of jealousy. Maybe they wish they could do it, and so they get angry and just decide to flood your comment section. Which, hey, feel free to comment on this one, even negatively. Helps the algorithm, so I don't care. Gets the video out there more. Tell me how you really feel. So, yeah, that's I don't have a script or anything, guys. I never have a script because I want to be kind of as general. I want to be as, I guess, real as I can. Again, not that having notes is a bad thing. I know a lot of guys who have them, but I just wanted to kind of just, I guess, speak from the heart on this, and just kind of say how I really, just felt about it. Um, why I do it. I do it because I enjoy it. I love it. I enjoy the suffering, and there's something to be said about suffering. Um, I know it's kind of weird, but I know a lot of people complain about misery loves company, and in this case, it's actually a good thing because it's good misery. It's good type of suffering that builds a bond with people that you never had before and that you'll never forget. Um, and going through trials, and it ultimately makes you a better person. I've always believed that the good times in your life, when you're not suffering and you're almost at peace, if you will, and nothing's going on and you're just truly happy, are kind of like the rest periods that you get in life before the struggle comes. It's like when you go to the gym and you lift your weights and you have that rest period in between where you're just sitting there and you're breathing and you're just at peace. You're not experiencing anything. Okay, now it's time to go struggle again. It's time to feel that pain, feel that burn, go through that trial again. So there's something to be said about that. And it's really hard to do, especially when you're in certain situations, especially like work or a job or anything like that. We all know that it's hard to remember that. Well, this is just part of the trial, because as you're going through it, you don't see that. I know I don't. Um, but it makes you kind of reflect on yourself once you kind of calm down and go, okay, what did I learn from that? What can I do better? Do I even need to be in this situation? Do I need to have this? Is there something else I can do? Some people see that as quitting. I don't. There might be something that you do and you go, well, I just don't need to do that anymore. And it's not quitting. It's you just changing, changing directions. And I did that before. I was playing in bands, and that's what I was going to do, and I just decided my heart's not in it. It's not what I want to do, and I switched more to the kind of doing this, being outdoors, to be back to my roots, back to the military stuff, the survival, the outdoor, all that stuff is what I wanted to do, and I slowly worked up to it, because I had gotten out of it for so long. Because as soon as I got out of the military, I didn't want to, I didn't want to really do anything right then. There's an old saying that the military really turns you off to camping. And that was true. When I first got out and came home, I didn't want to go out and camp and do nothing, and for a couple of years, I sat around, got fat, just did nothing, before I realized, okay, the break's over. It's time to get back to work. Time to get yourself in shape as best as possible. Still working on that, but that's all you can do, And I don't believe you could ever fully get there and just be there and go, okay, I'm there now, and then I'm just going to stop and stagnate, because then you just end up going right back to being fat and useless. So it's a constant thing. I think that's the issue in our country is we talk about the pursuit of or we talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but that's the key word. It's the pursuit of happiness. And sometimes you might achieve that. But when you do achieve that, you have to be very careful, because that can be a scary place to be, because that's when complacency sets in. When you're finally like, okay, I've got everything in place, all my ducks are in a row, now I can relax. And there's nothing wrong with relaxing. But don't confuse that for complacency, because then things can just get out of whack again. Things can just go wrong, and too often that happens. When you get comfortable, that's when complacency happens. Just like that quote from Teddy Roosevelt. You become a nation of pacifists. You get the luxury sets in, and you just get used to it, and complacency sets in, and then someone else who comes along who still has that fighting spirit and just overwhelms you. So, anyway, guys, that's kind of all I had to say. I'm sure there's more, but I can't think of it, and I'm not just going to ramble on forever. Yeah, hope maybe you took something away from it. If not, let me know in the comments what you think, or if you disagree with me. If you like it, go ahead and hit the like, subscribe button, whatever. And I guess I'll see you guys on the next one. Swish out.